Good evening and welcome. You're with News First, your number one news provider. I'm Shamir Rasuldi.
And I'm Sonali Wanigabadage. Now, earlier on in this evening, I caught up exclusively with State Minister Dilan Pereira on the way forward for the National Unity Government.
All that and more coming up later on in the news bulletin tonight.
But first, here's a look at tonight's headlines.
The Development Special Provisions Bill rejected by the Western Provincial Council.
අපි කොහොමද බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ මේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයාගේ මේ අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයේ යම් යම් ඇමතිවරුන්ගෙන් මේ ਸਰව සුභවාදී දේශපාලන ක්‍රියාවලියක් මේ පනතේ සඳහන් බලතල ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමේදී කරගෙන යයි.
Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs calls for bids to obtain a foreign currency term financing facility of $1 billion. What is the reason behind the frequent accidents that take place on one location on the Negombo-Divulapitiya road?
The Development Special Provisions Bill has become quite a topic of conversation across political fora. The bill has by now been rejected by several provincial councils. Today saw it being rejected by the Western Provincial Council.
There is a conflict brewing between the Western Province and the Ministry of Development with regard to provincial developments. Can any public representative and local government member who favours the provincial council system approve this? Ministers in the central government also have issues about this bill.
Tension soared when the bill was taken up for debate in the council. The session was adjourned due to mounting tensions and the council reconvened to debate the bill.
A large fraud took place at the central bank under the current legal framework. There was massive opposition from the parliament as well as the cabinet. Yet the Prime Minister moved forward with this bill. So how can we expect that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers will follow a clean-slated process when it comes to enforcing the powers in the bill? If ministers from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party say that this cannot be accepted, then there should be a decision taken at national level, obtain cabinet approval and bring it before us without putting us on the spotlight. If this bill is passed, the Central Environmental Authority, the Urban Development Authority and all other authorities will have to tone down. No one else will be able to speak against any project done through this bill. If this is not important to us, and if it is not mentioned in the agenda of the Western Provincial Council, let us discuss about something else. Roads, bridges and buildings in the village are in a dilapidated state. Farmers have no paddy lands. Let's speak of those issues. When I look at the Development Special Provisions Bill, I see a demon. The demon is all what Basil Rajapaksa did in the past. I will not allow anyone to hurl stones at the house from within. We will not allow that. This bill is enforced in 16 countries in the world, including Singapore and Vietnam.
Czechoslovakia
52 councillors opposed the Development Special Provisions Bill, while 28 councillors voted in favour. 5 councillors, including Susil Kindelpitiya and Nishanta Sriwarnasinghe, abstained from voting. 8 provincial councils have already rejected the Development Special Provisions Bill, with the Eastern Provincial Council yet to discuss it. Will the Development Special Provisions Bill receive the approval of the Eastern Provincial Council? If your answer is yes, type news space Y. If your answer is no, type news space N and send it to 7788. Express your views regarding the matter on our social media platforms. Log on to www.facebook.com/newsfirst.sl. You can also express your views by logging on to www.newsfirst.lk.
Earlier this evening, I caught up with State Minister Dilan Pereira on the melodrama surrounding the proposed Super Minister and the bill. Every day, we hear stories of the Development Special Provisions Bill being defeated at countless provincial councils. It's as though we are living in a melodrama. What is going on?
Well, there's no drama in it because all the provincial councils, irrespective of whether it's in the north, east, centre or the south, well, they know that this piece of legislation is atrocious, and this piece of legislation only serves one purpose, that is bringing in a Superman minister. So nobody will like it.
The 19th Amendment to the Constitution saw executive powers being curtailed of the President himself. However, this bill proposes to centralize power to one person.
Precisely so. We are living in an era where the President is giving up his powers. We are living in an era we are talking about devolution of power. We are talking about delegating powers. But here, it seems that something very contradictory to the principal way of governing in this country today is happening. I must say, you need a one-stop shop for investors to come in. But then, labeling this bill as one-stop shop, you can't have a one-stop minister.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party went to town over the central bank bond issue. However, there seems to be a lull now. Why is that?
Well, it's very clear why the lull is. The SLFP not only went to town, it was Mr. Mahinda Amaraveera, the Secretary General of the Alliance, who went and first complained about the central bank issue to the Bribery Commission. And it was because of us and because of the President that we were able to see that the term of the Governor of Central Bank, Mr. Mahendran, was not extended. So what is happening right now, there's a COPE report presented to Parliament. That report has to be debated in Parliament, and the Parliament, via Speaker, must decide what to do. There were certain COPE reports like Mr. Vijayarajah Rajapaksa's COPE report, which was a very good COPE report, that also ended up in the shelves of the Parliament Library or in the cupboards of the Attorney General Department. Why? It was not sent through the Parliament process. So here, we must now debate this COPE report in Parliament in January, and then Parliament must decide through the Speaker that it must be sent to the Attorney General. And also, I feel that we must also, through Parliament, make a request from His Excellency the President to appoint a special presidential committee to probe this bond scam, which is the highest daylight robbery in the history of Sri Lanka.
So are you saying that the COPE report will be debated in Parliament in January?
It has to be debated in Parliament, and the SLFP, the JVP, and even the TNA are of the opinion that it must be debated in Parliament in January.
Let's talk about corruption. So many agencies, so many law enforcement bodies to crack down on corruption. You have the Bribery Commission, you have the FCID, the CCD, the CID, the Pressifac. All these commissions and bodies. However, so much of delays.
Too many cooks spoil the soup. Very simple. Well, nothing is happening regarding the big fish. Nothing is happening regarding the so-called big scandals that the entire country discussed during the last presidential election. Only the small fish are being caught. So I think the government must rest together and see that we have one particular institution to sort of deal with the big issues, big scandals, rather than having so many. Having so many, as I said earlier, will lead to too many cooks spoiling the soup.
The Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs has called for bids to obtain a foreign currency term financing facility of $1 billion.
A communique issued by the Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs says that the loan will be used for the purposes of meeting corresponding import elements of development projects specified in the budget for the fiscal year 2017. The Cabinet has granted the approval to obtain loans between $300 million to $1,000 million for the development projects that need to be carried out next year. The Department of External Resources that comes under the Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs says that domestic banks incorporated in Sri Lanka, international banks and investment houses can provide proposals for the loan. The maturity period has been marked as 3 years or more, and the interest rate could be fixed or a floating rate linked to the London Interbank offered rate. The letter further says that the government of Sri Lanka reserves the right to reject any or all the proposals without assigning any reason thereto, and that the government of Sri Lanka reserves the right to negotiate the terms of proposals with the relevant banks and investment houses.
They say that there are no friends and enemies in politics. Bearing somewhat testament to this, local government members who once stood side by side on the political stage criticized each other today.
Speaking to the media yesterday, Ministers Digambaram and Ganeshan clearly said that this is a UNP government and asked some to leave without committing acts of sabotage. Persons in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party with no shame have obtained ministerial portfolios in the government of good governance. There are persons doing various things using the symbol of the flower bud, but there is no one wearing that band. Basil Rajapaksa is the sole member of that party. The former president has not obtained party membership. Some persons have their needs. So, when they cannot get a position, they cling on to whatever they can.
අවශ්‍යතාව තියෙන්නේ മന്ത്രിකමක් ගන්නට බැරි වෙනකොට කොයින් හරි හෙල්ලිලා තමයි යන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව තුල
The government of good governance is afraid of even at the cooperatives election. It is because they cannot face an election, they have started giving excuses.
ඒකට මූණ දෙන්නට බැරිකම නිසා එකී නොකී බොරු කන්දරාවක් කියන්න පටන් අරන්. අර වක්කඩේට හකුරු මිල වැන්දා වගේ කතන්දර කියන්නේ. මේක දිය වෙච්ච ගමන් වතුර ටික ගලාගෙන යනවා. ඔය කවුරු කෑ ගැහුවත් අපි දන්නවා.
No matter what is said, we firmly believe that the leader of the party, President Maithripala Sirisena, is working towards creating a Sri Lanka Freedom Party government in the future. The miner who hacked into the president's official website can do the demarcation process. He is talented. It is not a strenuous task to access Google and carry out the demarcation. Local government members who work to destroy the Sri Lanka Freedom Party are lost with no way of contesting the polls under the SLFP ticket. It is like the stork laying eggs in the crow's nest. It is later on that they figure out the difference. I must mention that the SLFPers are working whilst placing their policy on the tail of the United National Party elephant. Therefore, if the local government poll is postponed, they will suffer a great defeat.
Agriculture is one of the main livelihoods in Sri Lanka. Now, under the situation prevailing at present, farmers point out that they undergo numerous hardships as essential crops that could be grown domestically are being imported. However, the government's position is that there are reasons resulting in the supply being lower than the growing demand. We spoke to some key stakeholders for their take on this issue, which is distressing our local farmers.
The harvests of dry chilies, big onions, green gram, corn and several other essential crops have reduced by 25% compared to last year. The government will have to import these goods, incurring a huge cost since the local harvest is inadequate to meet the demand. The Department of Agriculture says that the government incurs a cost of 7,246 million rupees to import these 6 crops alone. 50% of the annual potato requirement, 60% of the requirement of big onions and small onions, 90% of the requirement of dry chilies, and 10% of the required green gram and corn are being imported at the moment.
The consumer suffers losses because the price in the market rises, which is caused by the increasing production cost. On the other hand, because of the high production cost, the farmer faces a number of issues. If you look on the part of the government and the importers, it is advantageous to them. Why? By importing, the government can charge a massive tax and the importer can earn a good income out of it. Since the majority of the country are consumers, this is a good answer to them. So what happens to the farmer in the country? What happens to the land in the country? Most importantly, what happens to the food security in the country? So as a government, they should think about this broadly and come up with a long-term solution. If they import potatoes, there will be a situation where potatoes cannot be grown. If there is no support to sell what is grown in the country, then there is no use.
The farmers are helpless. How can we live when you import from abroad?
We are not reaping the harvest. There is no point. We have not received a proper price.
They said that they have deposited the money to the banks for the fertilizer subsidy. We have not received any of those things.
The farmers are not people who go behind them asking for government jobs. If they cultivate and if they are unable to earn even 100 rupees, then they will have to commit suicide. In a few days, we will have to beg on the road. It is difficult to continue to depend on the importation of vegetables given the rising prices in the world market. If you take dry chilies, for instance, currently we import around 90% of it to the country. The domestic harvest comes into the market as a vegetable. There are areas in Jaffna which are ideal for potato cultivation. The plans to do this is with the Ministry of Agriculture. Through this, we hope to increase the domestic output and to control the imports.
The agrarian unions have expressed their displeasure over the steps that have been taken by the government to provide technical assistance and the fertilizer subsidies to the farmers.
The farmer has no market whatsoever. There is no regard to reduce the production cost for the farmer. If this situation continues, we will definitely have to depend on foreign countries for our requirement of vegetables and fruits. This will cause local farmers to move away from their crops and cultivations. This will be a national disaster. So we demand this government to uplift the farmer and their crops and provide the required concessions for the farmers to initiate a scientific process. If this does not happen, there will be no way of preventing this from becoming a national issue.
There was an issue with potatoes, so the government imposed a tax of 40 rupees, which was imposed all year round. We are planning on being self-sufficient in potatoes through boosting the productivity of seeds. Corn is usually cultivated in the Maha season. 3 years ago, we were self-sufficient. If we can harvest corn from 8,000 hectares of farmland, we can come close to the 400,000 metric tons, which is the demand. When it comes to big onions, we cannot grow them all year. From January to June, it is difficult to cultivate big onions due to the weather conditions. So we have to come up with a method to bring in harvests during the months of April, May and June. Although we have limited the use of pesticides, we import chili from locations where they use plenty of this. We hope to ensure that we become self-sufficient in this as well.
Welcome back. The Umaoya project is being met with mixed reactions, with many residents of areas impacted by the project even resorting to legal action. News First has been monitoring this story closely during the last couple of years. Today saw a protest being staged in Bandaravela demanding that compensation be provided to families which were affected by the project.
The protest began from the Thantiria area in Bandaravela, and protesters also took steps to block the Bandaravela-Badulla main roads. Politicians, professionals, artists as well as civil activists joined the protest. The protesters marched to the Bandaravela town and proceeded to block the Badulla-Colombo as well as the Bandaravela-Valimanda main roads. Shops in the Bandaravela town were closed down in support of the protest, while black flags were also raised throughout the town. The protesters charged that they are yet to receive compensation, even though 2 years have lapsed since they began feeling the adverse effects of the Umaoya project.
On a daily basis, at least 7 deaths are reported across the island as a result of road accidents. Now, we have CCTV footage of one particular location in Diulapitia where numerous accidents take place regularly.
The accidents recorded on CCTV had taken place in the Bubugamman area in Diulapitia. CCTV cameras had captured 6 separate accidents over the past few months, taking place at one specific location, astounding many. The Diulapitia police station is located in close proximity to the location where these accidents take place. We also observe the speed of the vehicles that pass these areas. Whatever the reason may be, locals say special attention should be drawn towards this.
The foundation stone was laid for the 82nd Udagamania under the Samarisavana National Housing Program in the Hambantota district by the Minister of Housing and Construction, Sajith Premadasa.
The new village, which is being constructed in the Viriyagama area in Suryagama Hambantota, was named the Satsuhada village. This is the 230th project under the Samata Sevana National Housing Program. What was the system in the country? The system was that nobody was given a chance to criticize the leaders. But now, people criticize the president, the prime minister or the politicians without any fear. We should welcome them wholeheartedly. Just because people openly criticize the government, it does not mean that this government will collapse soon. This government will successfully complete its tenure.
The final rites of Dr. Milina Sumatipala, chairperson of the Sumati Group, were performed today.
President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe visited the residence located in Borella to pay their last respects to the late Dr. Milina Sumatipala. She was a great social worker. She is the one who always thought of her family and the betterment of the general public and the country. Her children are very close friends of mine. I associated the family very closely. Therefore, I am saddened by her passing. Her demise is a great loss to the country and the numerous fears. She led an exemplary life. She supported art and cinema. During her prime, she mainly worked in Buddhist affairs as the chairperson of the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress. Her demise is a great loss to the Buddhist community. May she attain Nibbana. The final rites were performed after the body was moved in a procession to the premises of the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress in Borella. Artists, politicians and many others were present. The late Dr. Milina Sumatipala, who was the former chairperson of the All Ceylon Buddhist Congress, was the mother of Deputy Speaker of Parliament Tilanga Sumatipala. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also paid his last respects to late former Prime Minister Ratnasiri Wickramanayake this morning. Large crowds arrived at the Horana residence of the late Prime Minister to pay their respects. The final rites will take place on Saturday evening in Horana.
The agony of a mother, the agony of a father and the agony of an entire village. 14-year-old Soumya Lakmali became the 83rd person in the country to fall victim to dengue this year.
Soumya Lakmali, who was a grade 9 student from Zoisapura Vidyalaya in Moratua, closed her eyes forever after days of battling dengue. As she passed away, her brother continues to receive treatment for dengue at the Panadura General Hospital.
දරුවට 24 වෙනිදා තමයි සනීප නැති වුනේ. 25 වෙනිදා බෙහෙත් ගත්තා. බෙහෙත් ගත්තම ඊට පස්සේ ඒකෙන් අඩු වුණා. අඩු වුණාට පස්සේ දැන් දවස් දෙක තුනකට කලින් මේ ඇඟ රිදෙනවා කිව්වා. කළු බෝවිල එක්කන් ගියා. එයාගේ අකමැත්ත නිසා නැවැත්තුවේ නැහැ. ඉතින් උණ හැදිච්ච නිසා තුන් දෙනාටම නවතින්න බැරි නිසා එක්කන් ආව ගෙදර. ඒ ඩෙන්ගු හින්දා තමයි කියලා තමයි.
They said she passed away of dengue at around 6:30 last evening. My wife has fever and went for a blood test. My son is already in hospital and we have been told that his condition is worsening.
දැන් ඩෙන්ගු ව්‍යාප්ත වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ දැන් මගේ මහත්තයාත් මේ කළු බෝවිල මේ ස්පිරිතාලේ ඉන්නේ. දැන් එයාටත් මේ අමාරුයි කියලා කියනවා ડોක්ටර්ලා.
When Newsfirst reached Soumya's residence, a dengue prevention program was underway. This is the Telawila area. The MOH office of Moratua launched a spontaneous dengue prevention campaign. Locals say that over 15 persons have been hospitalized. The Moratua municipality has classified the Telawila area as a dengue risk zone.
තනිකර කුණු දානවා ඒව කැලේ වැයිලා තියෙන්නේ ඒව මුකුත් මේ කරන්නේ නැහැ සුද්ධ කෙරිලා නැහැ වතුර පෙරිලා PHI මහත්තයලා කවදාවත් එන්නේ නැහැ අවුත් මාස 3කට විතර පාරක් තමයි මේ පැත්තට ඇවිල්ලා හොයලා බලන්නේ.
Olympic medalist Susantika Jayasinghe, who was being treated at the Diatalawa hospital for dengue, was airlifted to Colombo today. Director of the National Hospital Dr. Anil Jayasinghe said she is being given treatment. 22 deaths have been reported in Colombo. There are other deaths that have to be confirmed. In total, there are 83 deaths. In Gampaha, 6,298 patients have been recorded, with 12 deaths being reported. In the Gaul district, 2,808 patients have been recorded, with 5 deaths being reported. 815 patients have been reported from the Kalmuni area in the Ampara district.
The current status of the vaccine is not clear. After the vaccine is available in the country, we can look into it.
The award ceremony of the diploma course in journalism of the University of Colombo Faculty of Arts was held this morning.
The awards ceremony for the years 2014-2015 was organized by the journalism unit of the Faculty of Arts.
As a result of the deterioration of some of those accepted technologies of communication, we have created a new kind of society. And in the Western world, the new generation is called the millennials. The characteristic habits of these people are really troubling from our point of view. They are self-centered. They say they are narcissistic. The sociologists who have explored their attitude to media have found some strange situation. In the smartphone of most any one of those millennials, you have about 50 to 60 or 100 self-portraits. They have a self-love, a narcissistic love.
132 award winners were facilitated at the event held at the Foundation Institute in Colombo.
Harry is still on the top of the rugby league today as well. Chaturang Hapawaj joins us with Dr. Maya Gunasekara for more details of the league matches this week. A very good evening to you, Chaturanga. Without further ado, it's all yours. Let's play the game.
Thank you, Shamir. Shamir did the introductions for us. We have an interesting second round that started today. CHNFC being beaten by Havis, massive 80 points. What do you have to say about the second round and the commencement of it?
Well, of course, first we start with the end of the first round. The Candy Havelocks game. Candy played a tremendous game.
People were downtoning Candy from the beginning. They thought they were performing poorly.
Yeah, I think that in that Candy Havelocks game, Candy got their act together. And what impressed me most is I sort of ranked the Havelocks forward slightly better than Candy. But Candy had their rolling malls and outplayed Havelocks in every department of the game. And what impressed me most was in the last quarter of the game, Habis were on the Candy line and Candy defended tremendously, forwards and three quarters. The hallmark of a good side is being able to defend your goal line, and Candy did that brilliantly. So I think Candy will be difficult to beat in Candy. Having said that, they have to play Navy, and Navy has an excellent place kicker. And Candy will be hoping that in the second round, Navy and Havelocks will be beaten by some side, whatever, so that everybody would have lost two matches, because I think it will be very difficult to win the championship if you lose more than two matches.
Very quickly, because we are running out of time, a number of matches are to be played tomorrow, and the day after Navy are to meet Police, CRNFC Air Force.
Yeah, Navy Police. Yeah, Navy Police is very interesting because they have this forces rivalry. Now, Police are wounded. They got beaten by Army, so they will be going all out to beat Navy. But Navy is a good side, excellent place kicker, and Army very unpredictable. It can be Nittawala, it can be anywhere, but they can upset Candy.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much for coming on the studio tonight. We will be having more updates for you next week as well. Back to the studio.
All right, yet another project carried out under phase 2 of the government, the 100-day movement, was vested in the public today as well.
The people of Kiulagama in Hambegamo had to suffer for a number of years without clean drinking water.
අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේ
Kiulagama was not a village, it was a place with brackish water. Now we are free of all of this. You can come here and take a bottle of water. We are very happy, we never thought we will have a day like this.
Phase 2 of the Gamma, the 100-day movement, was able to provide a solution to the drinking water issue for the people of Kiulagama with the support of Dr. Jayanta Vijayaratna and Iromi Piris. If you look at the name of the village, you can see the problem they have. The benefits of this project will be for the children.
This is not the job of the staff of MTV. This will bring them blessings. Let us all applaud the MTV staff. I was very happy to be a part of this.
The president